associating with marketing, whether you're delivering it or receiving it, are you approaching it as a people pleaser or a critical thinker? And how has the way you've been taught growing up influencing that? And how you're teaching others to receive and deliver their marketing being influenced by you? It is a circle. And that's why we have Clint here to talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like in the grand scheme of things. And we're going to take it down to the nitty gritty and tell you how you can change the way you're thinking about marketing so that you can really approach it in an intentional way. Clint, I'm going to invite you to tell people a little bit more about yourself, why this matters to you in particular, and why it should be mattering to them.
Sure. Well, my name is Cint Callahan. I've been a licensed therapist for about the past 23 years. I'm also a life coach. The reason why this matters to me is because as I've now newly gotten into the life coaching thing, I've had to wrestle with my own views on marketing, what that means, how can I be more authentic when it comes to presenting myself to the world, saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to teach you. I need you to know that I'm not just trying to sell you something that you don't need. I'm trying to help you change your life. And so a big piece of that and a big reason for that is because I'm going back to what's going on with my kids, because I have 2 boys. And the way I think about them is I've recently read an article that said that 90 to 93% of Americans, when you have kids, that you get to take 90 to 93% of the time with them is from 0 to 18. That's when your time with them is most impactful. And I'd like to walk that back and say, really, it's up until they're about probably 10 to 12, because that's when they really start, at least for my kids, started getting more into online games, more into TV, shows, those different things like that, where marketing content is now built into, like The Simpsons and all these other kind of shows. And so because of that, I have to be extra cautious and make sure that they know how to be critical thinkers when it comes to looking at the things that get put in front of them all the time. And they're getting better at it, but they're still very naive because they're kids. And so I have to spend whatever time I have left with them to help them become critical thinkers.
And that's so important, because even from the point of neurology and the development of the brain, your frontal cortex, which is where that critical thinking is based, that doesn't get fully formed until after 18 anyways.
Actually, it doesn't get formed until between 24 and 26.
There you go, which is coincident. This is where I geek out. I'm like, coincidentally, that's actually really close to when neuroplasticity actually, or the reproduction of your brain cells starts to decrease. So this is just putting those things into context, shows you how absolutely vital your role in your children's lives and the role that your parents played in your life impacts the way you receive and deliver any sort of marketing. Because remember, you're never not marketing, and in fact, you're never not being marketed to. That's it. So how then, because in particular, we're going to be kind of diving into this idea of people pleasing, because it's kind of a natural, I don't want to say opposite, but a balance, a mirror to critical thinking. Because oftentimes critical thinking, this is where you're actually going through it and going, let's pull this apart a little bit. People pleasing comes from just a place of reactive. You're going, I need to make sure that this is okay. I need to, and it's a very different sentiment going into it. So how would you say content marketing or marketing in general, and how you're in that world, how does that directly relate to the concept of people pleasing, which many people elect? They'll raise their hand and be like, I'm kind of a people pleaser. There are so many people who say that. So how do they navigate that space?
The hard thing about people pleasing is that it's insidious, because part of you feels like, well, I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm just trying to do what I can because I want everybody to see and understand and know the stuff that I know, because I don't want anyone to feel left out. But the problem with that is it always comes back to the old saying, right? If you try to be everything for everyone, you're nothing for no one, because you're spread too thin, and your market and your marketing or your pitch or your laser focus becomes more like a shotgun, where you can get to a lot of people, but it doesn't get in there. They don't truly understand what you're trying to tell them. So it has to be absolutely focused so they can be like, oh, this is how it relates to me. And that's been one of my hardest things, because I'm trained as a therapist, but now I'm going into life coaching. I'm learning how to market that. And it's been really difficult for me because I'm trained to be a shotgun and then a scalpel. And that doesn't work with marketing. I have to be a scalpel, and then I can do the shotgun approach of helping them with with the focused effort to get the larger effort that they want.
And that's so prominent. If you hear anything about marketing coaches and consultants, we are going to say you need to be focused. You need to make
Yeah,
sure that
they're
you're
good in the niches, right?
That's right. And a lot of problems that come up for people when I'm speaking to them about this is, yeah, but I don't want to manipulate. I don't want to just take somebody and say, this is the thing that is bothering you because I know it is, because I've done
Yeah.
the research. And so now, now we're stuck with this ethical dilemma of how
Yeah.
do we market ourselves in a way that is aimed to help, aimed
Mm-hmm.
to serve while being successful at sales
Yes. And
without.
that's a very hard balance to make, because for a lot of people, marketing is not first nature. You don't want to be the stereotypical used car salesman, right? Or like, hey, I'm not trying to just sell you this used car that's a lemon, but I'm also trying to sell you the undercoating, the extended warranty package, and all these other things because I need to eat too. So you're trying to not feel like that kind of marketing or that kind of sales, because really, like what I'm trying to sell is I'm trying to sell a way to help people figure out their stuff to become who they want to be, to stop. Really, what I'm trying to sell people is how to stop being burned out, because I think that burnout is the thing that everybody is going through. Because burnout is not just stress. And that's the thing I think people need to understand is it's not just stress. It's not something that a weekend or a vacation is going to get rid of. Burnout is profound disconnection from yourself, from your family, from your purpose, from all these areas that matter so much. And that's the piece that I'm really trying to get people to understand, is that burnout is not just this thing that people have because of work. You can get it as a parent, you get it as a caregiver, you get it just from being at work too. You get it just being alive, because there's so much stuff going on in the world that want our attention all the time, that we often feel like we can't connect to anything, because again, we're trying to connect to everything.
Yeah, and there you go. And now we're seeing the people pleasing side of being a marketer for
Mm-hmm.
yourself too, and
Yeah,
the need to establish boundaries so that you don't reach that place of burnout
exactly.
while you're doing all of the things. And so as somebody who's receiving the marketing, you don't want
Mm-hmm.
to feel like you need to people please, feel like your arm's being twisted.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be the person who does the arm twisting, but you also, as a marketer, as you want to market yourself as a life coach, and you're like, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do this, but I don't want to manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
Now you fall into a really difficult tightrope walk,
Yeah.
whereby you also don't want to fall into the people pleasing end, because now we're still back into that whole pleasing
Yeah.
everybody and not really getting
Yeah.
anywhere. So how,
Well, and
when
it's
you're
also
talking
like,
to people about that, how do you get
yeah,
them to get themselves in alignment?
yeah.
What would be something that starts that conversation?
The first question I ask myself is, what is actual manipulation? What does that look like to me? Because if I don't know what manipulation looks like to me, then how can I know if I'm doing that or not to somebody else? So that's the first question I have to look at. And for me, manipulation is if I know that I'm preying on people's fears and these different kind of things to get them to look at me and to see this. But also part of that is burnout is scary. So you also have to talk about the fear of what burnout can create. So it's that hard balance of how do I talk about the fear, but not make it where, well, this is a certainty, because nothing is a certainty. So how do you find that balance, right? And when it comes back to the people pleasing piece of it, part of the people pleasing thing, the only cure that I know for people pleasing is authenticity. It's being authentic to everybody that when you're talking with them. It's like, all I want to do is help. If all you want to do with me is have a half-hour conversation to find out if this makes any sense to you and have me not sell you, that's what I want to do. Because I want to have a conversation and let the conversation sell you, not me sell you, because I'm not a salesman. I'm a therapist and a life coach.
I like that. And also, I just wanted to say, my next question was going to be, what role does intention play in what you're putting out into the world within and around yourself? And
Yeah.
truly, this idea of authenticity, and people will know me to have said, you need to be
Mm-hmm.
intentionally authentic. You need
Mm-hmm.
to walk into it with the idea that this is who I am and this is how I show up, this state of being. And that's what changes the way you interact with the world, to make sure that
Yeah.
you don't succumb to people pleasing,
Yeah.
but then also that you don't manipulate others into feeling as though they must people please.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that for me, people pleasing goes back to childhood, because it came from me being bullied and throughout school, throughout elementary, middle, and high school. And so that's where my people pleasing was born. And it lasted until I was about 38. So I tell myself I'm a recovering people pleaser now, but I still slip back into it because I can't help it, because it's been in me for so long that I recognize when I'm starting to people please now, because now I know what my boundaries are. Now I recognize when I'm trying to be everything to everyone, because I can feel it. I can feel the exhaustion and feeling tired and feeling stretched too thin, because I now know what I'm doing. And it took me a long time and a lot of work to do that. But it's one of those things that as you continue to do this, you can figure out ways to take kind of some shortcuts and different things like that, but ways that are no less effective. Where, the thing that I'm basically selling is my life coaching program. And that is basically, I know that you can get better in 15 minutes a day if you follow a specific formula. And this is the formula I used. And I'll do what I can to help match the formula to you, so that you can now feel free to not have to people please, to not feel burned out, to recognize those signs and symptoms in yourself, so you can take that step back and take a breath and go, I don't want to do this anymore. I am tired of living this way. I'm tired of being this way. I'm tired of feeling like I have to be everything to everyone, because I don't feel like I can connect with anyone that way. And that is the profound disconnect that happens with burnout and people pleasing as a byproduct of that.
And what I'm hearing is that this is coming from a place of trauma. And so if
Mm-hmm.
anybody is looking at, okay, I want to market myself, but I don't want to be that used car salesman, and I'm not sure how to navigate that, just
Mm-hmm.
understand that, you're dealing with, from within yourself and within the people who you're marketing to, a space of potential trauma. And so
Mm-hmm.
you need to be intentional. You need to think before you act. And this is what really gets me going, is when I start talking about misleading marketing.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that, hey, if you're going to be putting yourself out there and you're going to be receiving marketing, then you need to be very, very mindful and intentional about how you're putting yourself out there and what you're receiving and how you're thinking about. Because we were talking earlier also about critical thinking, and how it's kind of a, I wouldn't say it's a lost art, but it's not really being reinforced in a way that is being productive for our society. And so we need to start, in my humble opinion, we need to start injecting all the things we're putting out into the world and how we're receiving that, the information that is put out into the world, with an air of intentionality, mindfulness, as well as critical thinking. That connection between mind and body is so, so important.
And it's interesting when you talk about critical thinking, because one of the ways that for my kids, what I've done to try to help them get some critical thinking and understand the difference is, like, look, when someone's going to give you something for free, that means you are now the product. It's not, because if you're paying for the product, that's the product you're purchasing. But if they're giving you something for free, saying, hey, this is for free, like Facebook, right? Like, what's that Netflix special that they did, the show? I
I
can't
know
think of
what
the
you're
name right now.
talking about. I can't recall the
Yes,
name.
yes. Whatever that show is on Netflix, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, comment the
It,
show if you
I,
know.
I had my kids watch that, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that that's how much data they're getting from me. I can't believe that they're building a virtual me to now track me everywhere, to sell to me, and really sell to me in a way that makes me want to do it because they know me." And I'm like, "That's exactly it. That's what I need you to understand. Social dilemma. That's what it is. It was called
There
the
you go.
social dilemma." And so I had them watch that, and it was interesting watching my oldest, especially, going, wow, I can't believe that. He's like, that explains why when I play this video game, these other video games pop up that I do kind of want to play. But then when I click on them, the ad is totally misleading. It's not the game at all. It's a totally lying ad. And I'm like, yes, that's what you need to understand, is that sometimes the ads you're going to see are going to be completely misleading. But that's why doing these kind of things, right? Podcasts, long form interviews, those kind of things are a lot less misleading, because this is just who I am. This is
Yes.
an advertisement and an infomercial for me in a way, but at the same time, this is who I am. This is exactly how I talk to everybody, because I
Yes.
did the people pleasing thing. I did the thing where I tried to be everything for everybody, and it was miserable and I was exhausted and I was depressed and I was burned out and I was all those things. But I chose, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to be myself, and either people like it or don't. And it's not my job to get you to like me. Either you do or you don't. And when you look at that, when you look at it from that way, that makes it as authentic as it can be.
And people are craving that authenticity today because we're
Yes, they do.
becoming far more aware
Mm-hmm.
of what is being sold to us every single day, because we are constantly being sold to. And so this craving for authenticity and real authenticity, not the mumbo jumbo people market. If nobody watched our introduction to this podcast episode, you absolutely should go find us on Instagram. And I'm sla.marketing confidence over on Instagram. Yours is, go ahead.
It's small changes, big impact, the number 4, the letter U.
Those two places house our kind of pre-show. You're going to want to watch that, because that's a space where we really kind of dove into this on a side note type of capacity, but it's going to absolutely help to reflect on where our conversation is going today, and how important it is that people start to become aware, that people realize what's coming at them and what's coming from them, and their role, their very important role in that space, as well as the authenticity bit. I can't shout about this enough. Being authentic, truly, not just like the reality TV shows that we mentioned in our live, real reality.
Yeah.
Reality that doesn't always look great, but isn't always a catastrophe.
And that's the thing, right? Is life is messy, and anyone that tells you differently doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're trying to make it look not messy, because that's the thing though. But you know where we respond to the most? The mess. Because it makes us go, oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done a podcast where I've had a booger in my nose. Yeah, I've done that kind of stuff before. You're like, oh man, oh no, right? And it's like, oh, I can't. Why didn't somebody tell me? You know, all those kind of things. But it's that kind of thing. Is you're not going to always say the right thing. You're not going to always do the right thing. But the thing is that if your intention is right, and then you have the ability to explain your intentions, because communication at its core is the most valuable thing that we as human beings have, because I know what I'm trying to say right now, but I don't know what you're receiving. A to B, it's an A to B thing. And that A to B is usually, if you're lucky, it's a 50% thing. But we don't want that. We want you to understand more. That's why I'm like, if you don't know, or you think you have a different opinion, tell me you have a different opinion. Because if you have a different opinion, that means I did not communicate effectively. So in order for me to communicate effectively, I have to know it, so I can then say, okay, yes, that's what I said, but what I actually meant was this. That's why one of the best things you can do for any relationship that you have, be it marketing, be it in your family, be it with your friends, be it with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, whatever it is reflective listening. It's where you say to the person, okay, what I heard you say is this. Is that what you meant? And by you saying that to them, it gives them the chance to say, well, let me think about that. Well, no, I did say that, but what I actually meant was this. And then you say to them, okay, so what I heard you say is this. Is that what you meant? And then they can say yes. Now you know you've received 100% communication. And if you have 100% communication, you now know your message has been fully and completely received, with all of the emotionality, all of the tonality, all of the stuff that makes up this conversation, to make it a real connection, instead of that 50% connection that most of us are okay with because we don't know any better.
I'm just sitting here with my brain exploding with just so much happiness, because communication, starting conversations, and conversations that actually matter, not superficial fluff. This was all something that I actually dove into in my semiotics section of some of my training. Semiotics being like the meaning and interpretations of meaning, which of symbols, which could be words, which could be sense, which could be anything, right? And it's just this idea of meaning. And I think this is a really important exercise for people to go through, whether you're defining your brand messaging, which is something that I help people with. And this is actively what we do. What I hear you saying is this. And this is where you start with your brand messaging, going, oh, wait a minute. hold
That's
on,
not what I
that's
meant
not what
to
I
say.
meant, right?
Yeah.
And this is so important in effective communication, in being authentic to not only the words that you're using, which are extremely important for the reception of your message, but also the intention that you're bringing behind it. So this right here, if you're taking anything from this conversation, it is when you're going through your business branding, when you're going through your personal branding in life and business, it is really important to reflect on that and to make sure that what you're saying is actually what you're meaning. And that can only happen if you're communicating effectively, if you're communicating, and you need a team. You're not in it alone. You're not in it to do it alone. And so you're going to get over those things, get over the humps in marketing of people pleasing, of self-doubt, of the lack of critical thinking, or the rushing in.
Ineffective communication, of
Not
inability to actually provide the emotionality that you're trying to
for us.
get people to see. So it's like, yeah, I'm doing this because, yes, I need to make money, but I'm also doing this because I don't like seeing people in pain. So it's that kind of thing. That is the messaging that I want people to understand is, I have a day job. I'm a therapist for a living. I'm doing this because I want to reach out to more people and help more people learn the stuff that I've learned, because it took me about 10 to 15 years to break through all that stuff. And if I can help you do it in less than that, believe me, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And it's so important to understand you cannot possibly bring forth the emotions that come through without having the backstory of saying, look, I've experienced these very traumatic events, either at home or in my schooling, in my social spheres. I bring that forth. And in order to really articulate that, you're going to need to have a deeper conversation. So if your original messaging is not clear enough to start a conversation, then you're already losing out. You're right. I don't want to necessarily say failing, but you're already losing out on opportunities. And we never want to close the door on possibility. So let's dive into that. Let's figure out what that looks like. Now, we don't have all day, unfortunately, because I do believe that you and I could probably talk for another half hour.
Well, we can always do part 2. It's fine.
That's right. That's right. So this said, I would like to invite you, Clint, to give a few final words, maybe cherry on top, so to speak. And then, of course, invite people to connect with you, because you want to connect with Clint, guys. Trust me, it will be a missed opportunity if you do not. So go ahead, Clint. Give them all you got.
Well, if you feel like you're burned out, or like you're failing in several areas of your life, or you're just struggling in several areas of your life, I know that you can make changes in about 100 days. And what we do is we do this by learning to take accountability and using the proper psychological tools to make small changes in each of these 4 areas of your life: your time, your connections, your emotions, and your purpose. And you can do this in just 15 minutes, which is just 1% of your day. And in 100 days, your life will be unrecognizable. And that's what small changes, big impact is all about. So if you want to make a change and you're tired of feeling burned out, or you're just tired of being stuck, please reach out. You can find me at smallchangesbigimpact.net/info, as it shows below. And on that website, you can get more information. There's a link to a free 20-minute training on burnout. There's a short ebook on burnout, or you can just set up a phone call with me. You can also, of course, find me on Facebook and Instagram at Small Changes Big Impact, at the number 4 and the letter U.
Beautiful. And trust me, guys, you go in there, you connect, you're going to be blown away, because the conversations we had today are just brushing the surface of the wealth of knowledge and the depth of insights that you can have through having a conversation with Clint. With that, I want to thank you so much, Clint, for joining us today. This has been very insightful, and my wheels are turning so much. I'm surprised
Like
people
I said,
actually.
part 2. Don't worry, we'll do a part 2.
You're going to be smelling. If you can smell smoke, don't worry. It's just my brain. It's just my brain going. Okay. Well, with that, you have a great rest of the day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.